All right then. Hi everyone. Thanks for coming. Welcome to another mentor career panel. Today we're having FRC president in the 2018-2019 year and our esteemed panelist, Mr. Jack Taylor, today. So with that introduction, let's get started. Jack, would you please introduce yourself? What are you doing currently right now and what is it about?
Yeah, so my name is Jack. I went to Prospect from 2014 to 2018 and was, mechanical lead and treasurer for a while there, VP once, and president once. Sort of my president year was Power Up, right? Was the name of it. So sort of since then, I went to Oregon Tech, and I'm about to start my senior year, my fourth year there, and graduate after the school year. And in the last sort of 6 months, I spent working at Daimler Trucks North America, interning there as a mechanical design engineer. And so there I worked on autonomous vehicle sensor cleaning systems. And then I have my sort of last senior capstone projects, and then I'm going back. I have an offer to go back to work for them after I graduate. That's kind of what I'm doing these days.
Well, that's actually really cool, not gonna lie. So what led you to choose Oregon Technical University, and what led you to pursue like mechanical engineering as like a career?
Yeah. So mechanical engineering kind of came from this robotics team. I started wanting to pursue computer programming and things of that manner, but I joined the team and found that it was not my favorite, and that I liked making parts a little more and designing things. And so right after my freshman year, I started doing like pretty much all the milling and lathing and all these parts, and found that really exciting. And then over 4 years, just kept pursuing that passion. And going to school and finding I really enjoyed my classes, and it was sort of easy to be passionate about what I'm doing. And sort of naturally ended up at Oregon Tech. It was kind of a school that fit my sort of attitude and sort of like-minded people there. Sort of a small school, nice cold weather, which I like. And they have a sort of really good mechanical engineering program, sort of one of the better schools in Oregon for it. So it was a sort of a natural choice.
All right. That's a really good answer. But like, what did it take to like get from, I don't know, when you're at least like starting off as a freshman, like, you're kind of dabbling with all the sub teams. What did it take for like, to really solidify like mechanical engineering as like a passion, or like as like something you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah. One event that happened, or thing that happened that kind of highlighted that I enjoyed it, was like during the first build season for my first year was Recycle Rush, which was a fantastic year to start off with. We were machining a lot of complicated parts. We used sort of like De Anza CNC mills, and I found that I was doing all of the milling and lathing pretty much just like 5 or 6 hours a day after school. And there was a period where I had to like go camping or something. I had to leave for like 2 days. And all the upperclassmen were distraught that there was no machinist to machine all the parts for like 3 days, which was kind of one point which highlighted that it was something I really enjoyed doing and came naturally.
It's really cool. So as a mechanical engineer, or like at least what you're trying to pursue, like what do you enjoy the most about your field? Like what really what really is like how should I articulate this, like enjoyable about what you do as like through your internship or what you saw in college?
Yeah. I have found the sort of like practical applications to be like a key aspect of enjoying the work, and finding a lot of value in it. A lot of like the classes I take, I can take that knowledge and apply it to drive shafts. And, you can test how strong a part is. And, that could be a really theory-based class, and you would normally not have a lot of fun doing it, but you can take those skills and turn around and use them and test a part and validate a part. And that sort of aspect of like the engineering process, to me, kind of really puts it all in perspective, lets you see like your physical part, your testing and designing, sort of getting to follow a project the whole way through. That sort of broad aspect of, tangible project work was kind of the big thing that sort of through every project I work on kind of highlights the enjoyment. Like in college, you take a lot of weird classes, but then at the end you start doing more projects and it's more applied and it's a little more exciting. And like on internships, it's definitely a lot more exciting getting to design components for trucks and stuff. Get to see those being built and assembled, and that's sort of pretty exciting to get to see, and sort of, I don't know, makes your work seem a little more valuable and like it's a real thing you're doing.
It's really like the applicational versatility of like your field, right? That like really pushes you to pursue that career, right?
Yeah. Every time I make some new tank, it's like assembly or component, and kind of look at it in CAD. It's pretty exciting, but definitely kind of isn't as fun as actually getting to make it and see it built and watch it, in action, watch it work. Kind of definitely is a high point. Really enjoyable.
Do you see yourself more as like a CADer or more as like a hands-on, like fabrication, machinist or fabrication, or like just both, jack of all trades?
Yeah. Well, when I was like on the robotics team, I did both. Kind of when I like did my internship, it was pretty clear cut division lines of some, like I was a design engineer and my team did not actually build parts. We moved, like I was on the fuel tanks team on the semi trucks. And so we moved fuel tanks around on trucks in CAD and did a lot of things mostly on the computer. And there were other teams that they didn't even have like a cubicle. They would just work in the shop and they were constantly assembling and disassembling trucks and making prototype parts. And there was kind of a clear division. I like to think that I do both, but you can kind of be drawn, I guess, in one way or the other on a position. But if I had to pick one, I would probably say design because it's a little bit faster. You can work on more projects in my experience.
That's cool. To kind of spin this question on its head, is there anything that you don't like about your field in mechanical engineering?
Yeah. I guess there's sort of, in my experience working at Daimler Trucks, there were times where the sort of large company aspect of, you have very strict deadlines that aren't super accommodating to your specific project. And things are so large in scale and scope that your work is not the primary focus, and it can make it a little bit tricky to, successfully like pull off your project. That was kind of one thing that I experienced as sort of a downside of, working at a large company like Daimler. But I think that's not something you're going to see everywhere. As far as like a generic sort of part of mechanical engineering that can be a little bit tricky. I would probably say just trying to like make sure everyone is happy on a project. So you're going to be pulled one way by like marketing and your industrial design kind of people who like want it to look a certain way. They want it to have certain features. And then your manufacturing is going to say like, oh, that's too complicated. We don't like that. Make it simpler. And so you're kind of getting pulled in a bunch of directions. Purchasing says, make this 50% cheaper. And that kind of, I think, is a pretty common thread. And that can be a little tricky, but I think that's sort of a part of the challenge.
Absolutely. You kind of see yourself more as like So this doesn't go along with like, like the corporate structure and you kind of having to balance everyone's needs, but like, do you see yourself more as like an individual contributor, or do you see yourself more as like a team player amongst like fellow mechanical engineers?
Okay. I mean, I think people are, like in my experience, operating pretty individually. You make a lot of decisions in how you design a part and the process you take, but you are supposed to, and you get a lot of value out of leveraging those around you and asking the question, saying, what would you do here? And getting their input and just trying to, make the most of what the people around you know. But I think in the end, it does come down to like, I have or have not done this. And like, I know a lot about this. I can run this on my own and be individual, but a common thread is just, you have to like explain what you're doing and be able to justify your work. And so I would say you're pretty individual, but you're constantly going to be tied to, your team and leveraging their knowledge, showing them your decisions and explaining your decisions and getting their approval. That kind of thing.
Absolutely. So this kind of ties in with what you did at Daimler. Like, what do you actually do on like a day-to-day basis in your field? Like, that's what I think all of us want to really know.
Well, I show up to work at 8 a.m. and I sit at a computer for 8 hours, which is, to me, fantastic. I use sort of their CAD repo tools. I used NX, and it would sort of bounce back. There would be a week where I would be doing a lot of modeling and like trying to make geometries for the tank for these parts. And then the next week I would be in supplier meetings, talking to people all over the world, trying to find somebody who can make the parts for us. And you kind of bounce around back and forth. So I kind of found myself in maybe 3 or 4 hours of meetings a day. Usually I was facilitating or organizing 1 hour of meetings a day. And in between then I would be, documenting my work, working on sort of our project's proposed solutions, trying to figure out how we're going to solve some of the engineering problems as they pop up, things like that. And, I think the sort of amount of CAD work you do is pretty variable. I liked doing CAD, and so I did it as much as possible. But people, one guy sitting next to me on my team might not like doing CAD. And we have resources in India who do our CAD for us. And so we'll send them out projects and drawings and stuff. I personally like making drawings, and so I made all of mine. So I would spend, 5 or 6 hours a week just making drawings and parts because it's fun. I like learning NX. But there's other coin is some people might not like that aspect. They might like, organizing meetings, talking to suppliers, talking to purchasing, talking to all these people. That aspect, you can kind of, emphasize that instead. And so you can kind of choose your position you take based on what you're going to be doing. And, even once you have a position, you can kind of shift around what you place emphasis on. I guess that kind of explains the day-to-day. It's a little convoluted, but
yeah. No, it explains it pretty much. So so what you do on a daily basis kind of depends on like the timeline of like the part or whatever you're making, right?
It kind of goes through cycles of, we design something, we find somebody to make it, we show it to the customer, we find a new problem, we just keep doing that over and over. It's kind of a repetition of the engineering process. Right,
absolutely. What aspects of your career or field or field of study do you find like similar to robotics? Like, where do you draw like parallels between what you do and then what you gained at Prospect?
Well, there's similar fast deadlines. You always sort of have that. I think that the timeline aspect is pretty helpful and good, exposure and experience. We would have things like, we know we start production in 3 years, like January 1st, 2024. And we would start those projects like now. And we're in like full force starting designing for that. And we have deadlines along the way that we're trying to meet. And it's somewhat similar to like week 1, week 2 through 6 deadlines. Just sometimes ours are a little, spaced over years and not 6 weeks. And that aspect kind of is pretty useful to have, to be able to work under pressure and get things done pretty quick. I found pretty frequently we would uncover a very large engineering problem and run up the flagpole. And we'd have to, like, in the next 24 hours, produce a lot of information on it and present it to executives to show them the problem. That's going to cost the company money. And that work, it's like a 24 hours to do this, is kind of being able to do that is very helpful. And I think that the robotics team kind of prepares you for that.
There's like bits and pieces of build season crunch,
yeah,
like spread out throughout your work.
Every once in a while, every couple of weeks, you'll have, one long night. Nothing too crazy, not 6 weeks straight. And as far as like the engineering process goes, I think it's pretty similar. At least from when I was on the team, it was similar of, one person will own a component or a sort of system and come up with their own design. And usually you'll have to sort of get buy-off from your team members and say, like, oh, does everyone agree that this is satisfactory? This is good enough? Or do we need to go through a redesign? Things like that. That exact process happens, more than once a week for all these teams. As sort of everyone tries to stay aligned on alignment was a very popular word on my internship, which was funny. All the, business jargon and lingo is interesting. But that kind of ability to keep everyone on the same page of what the robot design is going to be is really valuable, because on these large projects, I worked on the fuel tanks team, and we're designing a semi-truck, which is a lot more than just a fuel tank. And so what we do on a project, nobody else is going to know. We would do things like we have different sizes of fuel tanks, and we would try to reduce the amount of different sizes, try to consolidate to 1 or 2 sizes. So we don't have to make, 30 different tanks. We only make 2. And a project like that, it's not really high priority. The CEO doesn't care that the fuel tanks team is doing this, but you have to align with so many people and show people, like, on your team, your directors, what you're doing, and make sure that everyone is aware of the work and approves of this work. And I think that aspect can be kind of seen, and not exactly, but it's kind of paralleled a little bit with the sort of design process on this team.
Absolutely. So kind of going on like the same, same sort of path, talking about robotics. What skills or experiences do you actually gain here at 2813? As I know you described your variety of roles. Like what did you draw from that?
I probably got the most value from being president and trying to understand how to lead your peers. That skill will help tremendously in your career. I have found that there are, there's a spectrum of people, but on one end is people who lead on the team, and the other end is people who put their head down, they do their 9 to 5 and they go home and they aren't leading the team. And those people who lead and are really passionate about their work get promoted. I got an offer to come back because I had a large emphasis on leading the team and trying to provide value to everyone around me. That skill and passion will help a lot. And I think it kind of comes down to, knowing how to interact with people, knowing how to leverage someone else's knowledge. As whoever is president of the team they're not doing all the work. They're asking people to help machine. I don't probably know as much as some people do on the team about how to machine or how to use Onshape, things like that. And so being able to leverage their knowledge and get the team to work smoothly, avoid interpersonal conflicts, just trying to make that interaction and that teamwork go smoothly. Even as an entry-level engineer, you can use those skills. And even as going out of the management roles and stuff, that's increasingly valuable. That was probably like the biggest thing that I got out of it. And yeah, I've been working with people on my team who, it's sometimes they're a little tricky to work with. You're not going to love all your coworkers, but being able to understand what they want, what you want, and find a place where you're both happy is really valuable. And you can use that talking to coworkers, talking to your manager, talking to when you're interfacing with the company, right? What does the company want? What do I want? Should I negotiate a pay raise? Should I not? Things like that. You can see it pretty much everywhere. Just being able to, I don't know, sort of smoothly leverage the knowledge of those around you and communicate your ideas without being too egotistic or saying it's all about what I want and not what you want. Kind of having that skill certainly helped a lot.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good thing to take to heart. And that to me personally seems very valuable, at least in the workforce, or at least anywhere actually. But
yeah.
going on that same tangent, over your 4 years, what was it like when you started or when you were leading the team, and were there any bumps or were there any I wouldn't say dark points, but were there any less than stellar moments in your robotic?
Yeah. I'm sure there are most years some things that happen. There were points where it was really difficult to keep the team dynamic flowing smoothly. The interactions between team members with mentors and teachers was not very smooth. There were times where, it's the sort of the stereotypical kids working on I forget what they used to call it in middle school, but there was competitions to make towers out of toilet paper and toothpick towers and things like that. And there's always some friction when two people have differing ideas and you don't know which way to move forwards with. And, we had some difficulty solving that issue. How do you decide which student is correct or pick which direction to move in? And kind of coming out of that, I'm not even sure I know the perfect way to handle it. I don't know that there is really a perfect way to handle it. But I think the key is just communicating what you want and why you want it, kind of trying to be as transparent as possible about your motives and also your ideas. That was kind of the key takeaway. And that, in my experience with this, there was kind of a lack of that. And it kind of bit us in the butt during our build season, and we kind of delayed a little bit. But I think that there's always going to be some friction, and you got to kind of look for what people can help do and help provide, and why they're trying to do it and what they're trying to give you, and things like that can kind of help negotiate that interaction.
Absolutely. And there's probably many valuable stuff that you've taken away from those experiences, smoothly leading, and as you said, leveraging everyone's thoughts. Finally, I don't know, very I wouldn't say personal question, but not necessarily more on the technical side, what memories or what cherishable memories have you made or that you've had from being on the team?
I enjoyed meeting so many people. I was good friends with probably 100 people from the 4 years of being on this team. I don't talk to them every day, but every once in a while, people who were a senior when I was a freshman from sort of here, where I'm I don't think I even went to Prospect at the same time as your senior class. But I'm still I've talked to you guys here and there, and I think that's kind of my favorite part, is getting to meet a lot of interesting people and make a lot of friends. Like-minded people who are interested in engineering. That was kind of one of the big aspects. And the other one, kind of the obvious big takeaway, is just that engineering experience, getting to practice being a leader of your peers is, not an opportunity that everyone gets. And, I try to do my best to make the most of it. Try to help everyone around me sort of learn as much as they can. that was kind of the sticking points that were pretty nice about being on the team.
That's very cool. Question that kind of ties into that. How was it like joining robotics as a freshman? Like, coming out of middle school and like actually like, saying I want to join the team.
Well, I didn't want to join the team. My mom made me my freshman year. I don't know what she did, but she leveraged something. She made me do it. And I was like, I don't want to go. I went to like one Saturday meeting before build season where they were talking about how to use the lathe, and I didn't really pay attention. And then I don't know what happened, but when build season started, I showed up a couple days, and I think I was kind of in awe of what the seniors knew and what they were doing and how much they knew about this industry and this field, and kind of was inspired by them to want to join and participate and make parts and do these projects. My first year, really just starting in build season, a lot of what I did was just making parts and observing. A lot of like that year was the first year we CAD'd a robot in a long time. And a lot of CNC parts from Dianza and a lot of milled parts. It was a pretty complex robot. I'm sure you guys still have some random CNC parts from that robot just thrown around. I know we did back in the day. But something about that kind of just being thrown into the design process was kind of caught my eye and got me really interested in participating. And I, over the 6 weeks was there pretty much every day and did a ton of milling and machining and really enjoyed it and kind of found myself pursuing that ever since. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. And so just along that, like as we're like coming out of the pandemic, right? Like, robotics, we haven't had a first competition in almost like 2 years. Like what's your message? What's your message to, the freshman class that's entering, high school and, might just be starting out in robotics? Like, what's your message to them?
Yeah. I would say that it's a great way to meet new people, make friends as you're coming into high school. It can be a little intimidating to go into high school and then to immediately go to the oldest people in high school, try to be friends with like the seniors, can be a little intimidating. But I did that and I got a lot of value out of it. Really enjoyed my time at Prospect because I was friends with so many older students and learned so much from them. And I think that there's still a lot of opportunity to learn and engage with the educational aspect of the team. There's still a lot to learn about CAD and the processes and things like that. And yeah, it can be a little tricky to see the value and roll out of bed at 8 a.m. to join the Zoom meeting or whatever, 10 a.m. on a Saturday to go to a robotics meeting. But yeah, I think that it was kind of instrumental in getting me to where I am today. I don't think I regret showing up any day.
All right. We do also have a couple of drop-in questions. So one of the questions is asking, what do you most enjoy about the mechanical engineering program at Oregon Tech? And what projects have you worked on that you find the most memorable?
So as far as mechanical engineering at Oregon Tech goes, I'll give you the down low on the school. It's very small and your class sizes are 10 to 15 people. And I've had classes where it's 6 of us with the teacher. And so you're getting a lot of hands-on, making circuits to test resistors and do your electronics, your electric circuits classes, your power systems classes, your motors and stuff. You're machining parts, you're doing welding, and you're getting like hands-on feedback from the teacher. I think I've had one class that was like 50 people and it was like a psychology 101, just general elective class. And that was a high point, right? It's really, I've loved the teachers and they all want you to succeed and to learn. There's no quizzes weekly because I need to give them. There's no standardized testing. It is just learning, and it is focused solely on that. And I have never found myself unhappy with a class because I had to take some test that I thought was not really relevant or didn't test my learning. It was just a test for a test. I've, found a lot of teachers will let you have, a formula sheet. They're not going to make you memorize 50 formulas because that's really not relevant. Why would they test you on your ability to memorize things? Memorize formulas specifically. It's pretty focused on just a broad mechanical engineering understanding. And I really enjoy the classes and the teachers and the school atmosphere, but it is a very small school and there is not a very large social life. It's a very sort of quiet school, which I like. Let's see, can you repeat the question? I think there was a second half to it.
Oh, right, yeah. It was, what projects have you worked on, or what projects do you find most memorable?
Yeah, so since being on the robotics team, I did not participate in the Baja or Formula One SAE competition teams. Just from having done the robotics for 4 years, I was like, I'm gonna take a break and chill and dedicate a little bit less time to my academics, which I found pretty relaxing and definitely helpful for my sort of mental health and chilling out. I've done a lot of personal projects, worked on some small robotics applications like automatic light switch flippers, a hammer that hits the ceiling when your upstairs neighbors stomp too loud. And these days I am looking at self-cleaning autonomous vehicle sensors. Just kind of whatever at the time catches my eye, I'll 3D print parts and make some weird, like little Arduino robot. And Oregon Tech is pretty good, I think, in that aspect that they teach you programming, the fundamentals of it, at least, to be able to program a little Arduino robot. And they'll show you, they have like 3D printing classes and resources like that to be able to get to make these little tiny projects. A dumb little light switch flipper is not very useful or a really challenging project. It's just fun and kind of gets you exposure to getting to work on little small scale projects. Things like that, but yeah.
Absolutely. This is a question pertaining to your leadership at the team. What was the evolution of the team in your eyes and during your years of the team? How did you see the team grow or, change or evolve over the years?
So when I started, I noticed a common thread where whoever is running that team's year, they kind of would say the last few years were really bad. And they always say like, oh, the last president did a very poor job. We didn't do any CAD for the last 3 years or 4 years or ever. Things like that. And that was my first year. My second year was pretty smooth and still, that was my first year we did CAD. My second year we did not do CAD. CAD was always a focal point on measurement of whether the team was doing good or not that year. That kind of ended up being our main measurement, which is not 100% accurate. But my third year, we kind of dipped and said a lot of, oh, last year's was not very good. And my last year, we tried to, I placed the emphasis on just trying to look forwards and leave the best impression we could and not focus on maybe what had happened in the past. Why did we do a CAD last year? Why did we go with this design? We should have gone with this. It was much more upbeat and more focused on having a good experience. I'd say the most valuable things that can be done year after year is doing a lot of CAD, doing a lot of simulations, doing everything you can. Try to, even if it doesn't make a ton of sense, just doing as much as you can to learn and develop skills just results in a better understanding. And next year's robot is better, next year's team dynamic, next year's kind of educational value is better. That was kind of a common theme. And the tie into that is also recruitment, trying to get a lot of students to, stimulate the team and to keep the team growing. Those things were always very valuable. And you'd have a year where you didn't recruit as much, or a year where you recruited more, and years with or without CAD. And kind of the general theme that I liked to see was just people being more focused on how can we make this year better? How can we provide more value to these students? What other events can we run? I noticed you guys are running a lot of events, running new things, which is certainly something I think is pretty valuable and adds sort of the educational aspect to the team. I think that about answers that question.
Yeah, it does. And I think the current board and the current leads will take that, to heart and, really value your advice because, with your roles over the last couple of years. Clement dropped something in the chat. We got 68 signups this year in terms of recruitment, and 60% of them were, you found freshmen. What are your comments regarding this participation? What do you project, will happen to the team with this level of recruitment?
Yeah. I would say it's a great increase in participation. I certainly think there's a lot of value in adding as many new students as possible. And in my experience, the best way to do that is getting groups of friends to do it, because they'll use it as a social gathering and they'll all hold each other accountable to showing up to meetings. Year after year, that was the main thing. Like my freshman year, all the seniors were a very close-knit group of friends, and they ran the team, and it was like 6 of them, and they were basically the whole team. And they really enjoyed it because they were all friends and they, got along really well. And then as the years went on, we kind of expanded to more than just one group of friends, more than just 6 people. And a common theme of it was we would recruit a group of people, and they would either already be close friends or we would become friends pretty quickly. And that was, I think, a valuable aspect, both for recruiting and also just sort of making sure that team members were excited to show up and were excited to learn. As far as, a 60% freshman sign up, that's, I think, pretty good and bodes well for the, the future of growing the team. I think, there's always sort of a little bit of a decline in how many freshmen sign up and how many stay on, but I believe that the bigger sort of group you can get and the more exposure you can get to, school activities and things like that, the more people will engage and stay on the team. I tried to do a lot of events with the school, going to like back to school nights and t-shirt can and stuff. And I think you guys have kept doing that since I left. And I think that was part of a valuable part of recruitment, just trying to get positive exposure to the robotics team.
Yeah, kind of tagging along to that, what's like your advice for for people to stay on the team? Like you talked about, I think this is common for every year. We get a lot of signups in the beginning and then, kind of tapers off as, I wouldn't say weeding out, but people who don't stay as committed throughout the year. Like what's your, what's your spiel about, staying dedicated to the team?
Well, I would say there's kind of two sides. There's, there is a lot of value to get out of staying on. You get more experience with leadership, you get experience teaching these skills you've learned to the new people. You get, the technical aspect, you get more exposure and just more and more experiences, more knowledge of engineering, the processes. And on the other side, there's kind of what the team does to facilitate them. It's important to give the freshmen meaningful work and to make sure that they are, that everyone on the team has an important role in that. It's not sort of a freshman unroll and roll up the carpet and the seniors do all the work and do everything. I think that was something I really enjoyed, was knowing that I was doing something valuable my freshman year. Kind of definitely was important to me wanting to stay on with the team. That's kind of I think a common thread of sort of an important leadership value is just making sure everyone is heard, that you listen to everyone's ideas, and make sure that everyone's participating. If you kind of can see that there's maybe a lack of engagement, or a group of students might, might be showing up to the Wednesday meetings during lunch or something like that, your weekly lunch meetings, but doesn't show up after school or something like that. Sometimes that it's kind of important to address that and try to make sure that they see value or increase the value of the meetings. And it can be a little tricky. I think my advice there would be to just try and put the robotics team in as positive a light as possible in front of as many people as possible, and to show it as like a cool place where you can meet new people and learn new skills, and not a place for all the nerds to go. Try to make it branded more as like an academic club where you can learn business and marketing and finances and engineering as well, and programming, everything like that, and less of just this is where the really nerdy kids go. Kind of, I think that is a common thread which detracts from the amount of people who want to join the team.
Right. And finally, kind of like the penultimate question is like, what is your message / advice to the team? Like, we're phasing out of the pandemic. I don't know whether you know this, the school construction that recently happened kind of kicked us out of the lab. So we're operating out of shipping containers now. What's your message to, as former president, former vice president, former, I don't know, everything. What's your message to, the current class of 2022 and, everyone on the team right now?
Yeah. We've kind of, this is a common thread. We moved rooms pretty frequently. I think I bounced between 3 rooms when I was on the team in 4 years. And I think it's just part of the challenge, and it's pretty exciting to just have more, engineering problems to solve. Space constraints is an interesting problem. I think it's a common thread between a lot of teams. And I would say just not to let it like damper your experience. And in terms of COVID, I think, I would be pretty excited to start as COVID, maybe as this Delta variant ends and goes away. Be pretty excited to start getting to show up and get hands-on experience building and programming and testing robots and driving them around. Just getting to do something in person. I think getting that social aspect after COVID certainly sounds pretty nice.
Absolutely. And yeah, the current team will take that to heart. We'd like to thank you for, your resilience doing the team. As a current senior, I've only heard about you. So this is my first time meeting and actually talking to you, but I've heard about how much you've done for the team, kind of brought it out of the dark. And, as like a current board member, I'm currently the treasurer. I really appreciate your efforts and, keeping the team alive, because like without you, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't, be doing the things that I find so enjoyable. So I'd like to thank you for that. I think many members of the team share the same sentiment about that. And we'd also like to thank you for, being the only panelist today. We'd like to thank you for, giving us your gracious time for actually, answering these questions and, giving some insight to how it was being on the team. And, preferably we'd like to have more panelists instead of just having a one-on-one interview, but it was still really enjoyable to, talk to you and realize and understand your, interpretations on what robotics really means.
Of course. Yeah, I'm definitely happy to keep staying in touch. I'm planning, I graduated in June and I'm trying to come back and keep mentoring, but
that's great. We'd love to have you back.
I don't know if I'm going to be in California. I might be up in Portland, Oregon, from where I interned. But yeah, I think I'll certainly do what I can to keep interacting with you guys and staying in touch. It's very exciting to see what you guys have been doing, how you guys have been expanding all the projects and outreach and all that.
That's great. We'd love to have you back. Yeah.
Awesome.